Well, welcome back from your home again. Another week, another week that we're all home. Um, hope everybody is safe and doing as well as can be expected. We are trying to keep as mentally sane as possible, supporting others and doing things the best that we can. So we are coming again live. We'll do it again in 2 weeks, but um, we are going to focus again this week. We did 2 weeks ago. I think it was what, the 16th, I think. Um, we started kind of doing a topic about liberating structures, and I gave a little bit of the history. I'll refer you back to that so I don't have to do that again. But based on feedback, we're going to do another one. And um, if it's not, it shouldn't be surprising to anyone that knows me. Oh, I didn't introduce myself. See, I have failed already. Look at that. My name is Tricia Broderick, and I'm with Agile for All. I coach, I train, I mentor. I do pretty much lots of things to just try and help people uh, be better leaders and engage in creating the right kind of workplaces where people can thrive and customers are super happy with the results as a byproduct from it. So, um, anyone who does know me knows that I'm very big on appreciation and really taking that extra bit of effort and time and doing that. And so, this liberating structure that I want to focus on is actually called Appreciating Interviews. Now, just a slight recap, liberating structures, and I'm going to read the definition, so I'm going to look away from the screen for a second, based on their site, and we'll have Ashton or somebody will put it up on the site, the URL. But liberating structures are easy to use microstructures that enhance relational coordination and trust. They quickly foster lively participation in groups of any size, making it possible to truly include and unleash everyone, which is amazing. Okay. So we are looking at this, and one of the microstructures that they have is referred to as appreciative interviews. And appreciative interviews is coming at it from this perspective, slightly different than what almost you would think, or at least what I thought appreciative interviews meant. So, what appreciative interviews, and let me just give you kind of a root thing, is really is targeted. The intent initially is targeted discovering and building on root causes of success. So you're trying to build on the positive, but the reality is it's sometimes kind of hard for us to know what really was the root cause or a foundational element that made this thing successful. And so a way to unlock that, unleash it, and getting it going is a microstructure that they call appreciative interviews. And so here's how it works, okay? First, you kind of have two people, you pair up two people, and you have them interview, but in a different kind of interview style, okay, than what maybe we all traditionally think of when we think of interviewing. So what you're doing is you might prompt with a question, and I'm going to read the question that they have here. You can adjust it to what you need, but please tell a story about a time when you worked on a challenge with others and you are proud of what you accomplished. What is that story, and what made that success possible? Now, that's your kickoff question as the interviewer, okay? And I put it in the chat window. That's your kickoff question to ask. And then your job as the interviewer, is it to validate, as what we normally think of as interviewing, right? Is it to agree or disagree? It's to be super curious. It's to be really engaged in what their story is, what possible where places they go with their story, what little things do they bring up that you notice a change in their energy, their smile, their dynamic, that they may not even realize that their body was throwing off a signal in a different capacity. And so you're really trying to just kind of listen with curiosity as the interviewer, because what you're going to do is, as the interviewer, in the next round, when you get into groups of four, sometimes you can do 8 different group sizes, right? But when you get in groups of 4, let's be simplistic about it. Now you're sharing, but the interviewer shares the story. and the key root successes and the foundations to the other three new people. Now, that seems kind of strange. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. To some people, it will seem strange. But what you're doing there is a couple things. One, you're validating that you heard somebody. And it is shocking how much sometimes just the need to be heard, the need to have someone listen and feel seen, feel heard is there in terms of creating trust, in terms of creating um, relationships and value for an individual. But you're also actually highlighting what you felt was important based on what they were saying, which gives that opportunity for them to go, no, no, that was actually not the important part. Or, wow, I didn't realize it was that important, but actually in listening to you say it, I'm seeing it now too. And so you get to almost experience your experience through someone else's eyes, if that makes sense, right? Like you get to actually understand what someone heard from your story and what you felt was valuable and what you were communicating. Did they hear that, and what that does that mean? And so in that group of four, you can then start to look for patterns, for insights, for information that is there something deeper. You might want to throw in another microstructure of 9 whys or something on top of it to go deeper, but you're trying to look for real root causes that was there. And not necessarily the scenario itself specifically, not even all of the details, just what do we want to build on that really was foundational in these various four different stories. And so you're looking for that, you're sharing the stories, then you look for those insights, the feedback, the common patterns, and then you're getting back together as all. So it's very similar to the 1, 2, 4, or 1, 4, all, 1, 2, 4, all. But it's really focused on the building blocks of in a positive way of what do we need that we've experienced, not what do we need that we think we need, or what do we need that we are told is important, or what do we need that we imagine is valuable, but what do we need that we've experienced, that we've had success because of, that we need. And once you have some of that information, you're sharing that, it's really powerful in terms of energy, in terms of connection, in terms of true, real reflection and understanding what makes something super valuable. Because there are so many times that I have technically done something so wrong, and yet it was still successful. Why? And if you look for those key foundations, often they're not about the technique at hand. They're about the environment it creates. They're about the relationship. It's always people. Always, 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 always comes back to people. And so when we're looking at that, how do we take that spirit and build off of people's positive memories? There's something that when you've got a dynamic where you're understanding and remembering a good moment, you actually have a dynamic of the feelings that come with that as well. I'm just going to laugh right now because I don't know if you just heard my dog just tried to bark at the FedEx guy. My husband's trying to move my dog, but my dog has the ability to just lay down and go dead weight. And it's like impressive of a scene right now. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. So where was I? So as we're talking about um, building on that positive energy, because I know I just did this on social media. I can't believe I did this, but I just kind of did a post of remind me of your favorite memory with me or whatever. And I found myself, it wasn't even just reading all these awesome moments, right? But I actually could feel the happiness in those moments, or the terror, like if it was a haunted house, the terror and things like that. But it's immediately like I'm immediately smiling, right? And so when we create an environment as a leader where we're building off of people's successes, where we're building off of that feeling, people feel a little bit more confident to kind of tackle anything and able because they remind they remember that it is possible, that they have experienced it, that they were able to do it despite whatever challenges they're facing, whether they're, you know, at home working well, trying to deal with everything, or they just came new onto a team and they didn't know anybody. We all have successes. It's easy to focus on the failures, but it's amazing to focus sometimes on those successes, and then to have someone kind of engaging you with the interview, with the questions, with the curiosity, allows you to go a little bit deeper, allows you to explore what else about it really was true for it. Because I know for me personally, if someone's like, tell me a success you have, I'm trying to be so quick with the success and like move on because it's a humble thing, it's an imposter syndrome thing, it's all these different dynamics. But if someone's asking genuine, curious questions, I'll go there, I'll dig into it. So it creates that framework, just as the description said, of unleashing the creativity, the energy as we go forward. So in terms of how you would do it online, how you would do it remotely, very similar, using breakout rooms, using those things where you can send them off, break out, let them do the interviews. Have, you know, maybe you even prep with a little bit of that, not just the initial question that I put in the chat, but also some really good curiosity questions, not not validation or judgment kinds of questions that we accidentally sometimes ask, and have that available for our interviewers so that as they're engaging it, they have some tools to truly conduct that appreciative interview and see what comes out of that. Okay, you can use some sort of whiteboard tool. I just learned a new whiteboard tool that I'm going to be testing out today called Limnu on my app, so I'll put that in the chat as well. Yeah, I did. And I'm going to test that out. But you could use Stormboard. You can use, I mean, honestly, you could use the whiteboard off of Zoom. That's sometimes a little glitchy for me, but different ways to collect it. You can use Google Docs and just collect it in there, right? Anywhere that you want to kind of collect and brainstorm out of those things is fair game with it. As we go, we also use a tool called Miro to do a lot of our collection and then have it almost be a common board for people as they're going forward with it. So that's one approach. And because I'm so big on appreciative, this actually reminds me of another tool that I wanted to share, kind of a bonus additional tool. It's not a liberating structure. This one's actually from CRR Global and part of their organizational relationship systems coaching program. And it's called the Appreciation Loop. And so if you're not trying to get to root causes, but you do need the energy, you need the positivity to build off, especially with right now with us all working from home. Zoom is exhausting, right? What are we doing? How are we dealing with this? How are we going to engage with people? And you're looking for some energy boost with it, but also building of some relationships and some trust, but not necessarily the root cause part. One of the tools that I learned from CRR Global is called the Appreciation Loop. Now, it's really a simple tool. So let me explain what the tool is first, and then I'm actually going to tell you how I did it the very first time, okay? So the tool is just this simple. One person with another person. You could maybe even do a group of people, but basically, whether you're in a group or in a pair, somebody says an appreciation. The only response is thank you. Somebody says another appreciation, and you just go in a loop. You go back and forth several times. And I thought, okay, it's a nice tool. Okay, whatever. But we had homework that night. I was doing the certification program. And so for my homework, I actually had my teenagers do the appreciation tool, the appreciation loop tool. And so I have, I guess at the time, let's just say a 15-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. And I make them sit down, crisscross applesauce, right? And they're looking at each other. And I give I give the instruction of, okay, we're going to do this appreciation loop where each one of you appreciates the other person. You go back and forth. I don't know how long we're going to do this. I'll call it based on what I'm seeing. And so I think my son started first. My son throws out something like, I appreciate that you're, um, I forget, it was a really weak first one. It was something like, I appreciate that you don't annoy me. Like, it's not very, like, okay, that's an appreciation. And then and she just comes right back with the same, like, well, I appreciate that you don't annoy me, right? And so I'm like, oh, this is going horribly wrong, horribly bad. But then they both look at me and I'm like, it's a loop, keep going. And my son throws out, I appreciate that you play video games. And she upped it just slightly. I appreciate that you let me play video games with you and your friends. And then his appreciation came back of, I appreciate that you're funny and I actually I'm able to have you participate with us. And basically as they each kept appreciating each other, one, it got more specific, two, it got more genuine. Like three, it got more to an essence of really what they really value about each other and appreciate about each other. I am trying not to cry. I'm like, I mean, my kids fairly get along and they, often and things like that, but it was still just this moment of truly seeing that appreciation happening, um, and engaging. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And so I became immediate, like, okay, my dismissal of that's lovely went to, oh, this takes it to another level. And sure enough, I've done it now in a couple conference sessions. And it was actually in this conference session of, our Humanizing Work conference that we did last year, where that's a training event that we hold for our clients only, where people are together for several days. And it's a smaller event, it's under 100 people. So people kind of know each other, and a lot of them reoccur every single year and come back. And um, and so at the end of my session, I actually had them do an appreciation loop for people in the room. It was like the last session on the last day, so it just timed out perfectly. And again, in that room, it wasn't just people walking up to other people going, thanks for sitting next to me. But as that loop kept going back and forth, as they kept going back and forth, they kept going more honest, more detailed, more depth of what they truly appreciated about the other person. It became safe to really recognize that, because I think sometimes when we appreciate somebody and it's super valuable, there's still a slight insecurity for yourself sometimes, because it might have meant that you needed help. It might have meant that you needed that thing that what if you value that and they don't? And there's a dynamic there that I never really understood or appreciated. But in watching the appreciation loop, people are able to get past that because they want to follow up with an appreciation they just received. So they want to go deeper with it. They're willing to go there because they just heard some nice appreciation for them. So big fan of this. Really, really like it in terms of providing energy, in terms of real authentic connection and understanding of each other and what we value and bring to the table. You can do this in pairs, you can do this in groups. To do this virtually, same thing. Use breakout rooms a little bit right now. Um, Able to do. I've never done it where I had people write them down. I can see some pros and cons for that. Out there, personally, I would rather have it be verbal and in a direct connection. But if you try it, let me know how it goes. Like, I'd be curious to know how it goes to have that kind of appreciation, not just be transparent to the individual, but transparent to the team as a whole. I'd be curious. I could see some pros and cons, but experiment and try it and let me know how it goes with it. So those are two techniques, both liberating structure, the microstructure of appreciative interviews, and CRR Global's appreciation loop. Both will give you energy. Both will build on positivity and relationships with it. The appreciative interview, depending on your prompting question, will actually get you some root causes as well, depending on what you're trying to achieve with it. All able to be done virtually, all able to be done in person, all able to be done in pairs or with groups as you're going for it. So let's open it up a little bit to questions as while I take a sip and see what we're getting on multiple channels, not just on Facebook Live, because we switch this over as we're going. Do people? Okay, I got one. Let me read it. Do people get an okay. So the essence of the question is do people kind of get annoyed with the appreciation? Does it ever make people uncomfortable with stuff? Yeah, yes. There was actually a technique once I saw somebody made, and that's why I said there's pros and cons with the super transparent to everybody I could see. I was part of a tool one, or an exercise where they used a tool where they had each person sit in a chair, and then everybody like sent appreciation their way. I didn't enjoy that at all. I didn't like not being able to say anything back. I didn't like feeling like all the attention was on me. It made me very, very uncomfortable to the point that I'm not sure I really even heard any of the appreciations. So yeah, depending on different individuals, now somebody else might have loved that and basked in it, and that's not a bad or a good thing. It's just different personalities, different dynamics. For as extroverted as I am, and I have no problem being visible to people, I don't like praise being visible to me. It's just part of me. And so how you go about it can be different for different people, which is why I said there's some pros and cons to whether or not making it super transparent or very in that way could be challenging. The other thing that I can say is if you do it in a group, you have to, there is the potential that if it's free form of who appreciates who, somebody might not get an appreciation. Somebody might not get as much appreciation. It can cause some different dynamics with it. Maybe that's okay. Maybe they didn't do anything to get appreciation for this round or these areas. But it is something that as a leader, I try and notice and pay attention. I definitely wanted to add energy, not pull away. And so I noticed the frequency of how often I do it, and each team is different of how often. Former project manager used to actually do it. I think it was at their start of their retro. He did like a time box of appreciations that anybody could say in any time or any fashion. And so and then they actually became, it almost became a speed appreciation because everybody wanted to get them in and they knew they had a small time box. And so it actually added energy in a completely different way because they wanted to get them out, but they didn't want to get cut off for the time box with it. And they kept building on it. I also think it's something that we're not accustomed to doing. So it takes a little bit of time to get used to doing it and build on it. So a couple worries, but ask. Just talk about it. So I got a question from Ed. Hey, Ed, how successful has the appreciation loop been in unpacking toxicity? I don't think, everybody's going to have different experiences with it, right? So far, my experience is I don't think it actually unpacks the toxicity. What I think it does is gives people some common ground so that they can unpack toxicity and challenges and issues in the group. Where I used this tool once is I had a leadership team that was super like really toxic, really, really, really toxic. And the problem is any kind of conversation we started to get into to unpack it, to start dealing with it, people were so in this place of not feeling valued, not feeling appreciated, not feeling heard or seen or will, and so they just really almost weren't willing to engage in the conversation. And so we did this appreciation loop where, yeah, you might be frustrated with 20 things about this person, but you also appreciate these things about that person. And so when we started the session with this, it actually gave everybody some common ground of, okay, in perspective that, okay, even though X is a problem, that doesn't mean they think ABC as well. Or even though I may not agree with this part, I feel seen and valued because of this part. And so I don't think it unpacks the toxicity. I think it gives you a chance in some cases to unpack it and to really then be able to engage in it, because it's similar along those lines of, and the studies range anywhere from, I've seen 3 to, I think I've seen up to 8, where you need some positives in order to really embrace that criticism, the negative. And so if you're dealing with toxicity, you're talking about negative, you need to have some strong emotion and in a positive energy sense heading into that to make that happen. Okay, so I think this is a lead-in type tool, not necessarily a tool that will make all of that go away. In fact, if you try to use only that and not deal with the toxicity, I think the next time you try it too, people won't believe that those are genuine appreciations, because at some point, trying to avoid the conflict will come back and bite you. Okay. So that's our time for today. We will be back in 2 weeks. I don't know what date that is. I don't even know what day of the week it is, honestly. It's all the same. It's like one big giant Groundhog's Day right now. But we'll be back in 2 weeks. I'll go live in 2 weeks. We are doing daily doses. Peter Green has been doing a number of them, but other people within Agile for All are doing daily doses. I think this gets turned into a daily dose as well. We have different virtual classes out there that are available for people. Encourage you to check it out. In the meantime, if you need anything, just holler, and please be safe.